The gravity chamber crushed downward with 8 times Earth's pull, and Kai Chen's ribs screamed against his lungs. Blood pooled under his tongue. He'd been here 47 hours without food, without water, without sleep. The Crucible didn't care about human endurance limits. It only cared about results. Through the reinforced viewport, 3 sets of eyes watched him. The first belonged to Commandant Threx, whose species evolved in gravity wells that could flatten starships. The second pair glowed with bioluminescence, belonging to a Vorath instructor whose kind hunted in methane storms. The third observer stood apart from the others, veiled in shadow, her presence felt more than seen. Kai pushed himself to his knees. The floor beneath him was stained with fluids from previous candidates. 17 had entered this chamber before him. None had survived. The Academy didn't lower its standards for humanity's first applicant. It raised them. His vision blurred. The pain in his chest felt like broken glass grinding against muscle. Every breath was a negotiation with consciousness. But Kai had learned something during his 3 years at Vexa Prime Academy that his alien classmates hadn't quite grasped. Humans were exceptional at one thing above all others: they were too stupid to know when they should quit. He stood. The gravity increased. Kai's knees buckled, but he caught himself, fingers splayed against the floor. Blood dripped from his nose, spattering the metal beneath him. Through the viewport, Commandant Threx leaned forward. This was the moment candidates broke. This was where survival instinct overrode ambition, where the body's self-preservation protocols forced submission. Kai smiled. It wasn't a big smile. His split lip made anything more than a slight curve impossible. But it was genuine. It was human. And it was the most terrifying thing the observers had ever seen. Because in that smile was a truth the galaxy had been slowly learning since humanity stumbled into the stars. They didn't break the way other species did. They didn't calculate survival odds and surrender when the math turned bad. They did something far more dangerous. They got creative. Kai's hand moved to his utility belt. Academy regulations allowed 1 piece of personal equipment during Crucible trials. Most candidates brought environmental shields, medical stims, or genetic boosters. Kai had brought a piece of earth-forged steel, a simple folding knife his grandfather had carried through 3 wars. He jammed the blade into the floor seam and levered himself upright. The Vorath instructor's bioluminescent patterns flickered in surprise. Using external tools violated the spirit of the Crucible. But it didn't violate the letter of the rules. The trial measured capability, not method. And Kai Chun was demonstrating a very human capability, improvisation under pressure that should have killed him minutes ago. He took 1 step forward. Then another. The knife scraped against metal as he dragged it behind him, using it as an anchor point, a focus, a reminder that he was still moving. The target panel waited at the chamber's far end, 20 meters away. It might as well have been 20 light years. 15 meters. His left leg stopped responding. The femur had micro-fractured under the pressure. He could feel the bone grinding with each step. Medical school had taught him exactly how much damage he was accumulating. His body was destroying itself. In another few minutes, his organs would begin failing in cascade. He would die in this chamber, and the galaxy would have another data point proving humans weren't ready for the stars. 10 meters. The shadow observer moved closer to the viewport. Kai couldn't see her clearly, but he felt the weight of her attention. It was different from the others. Threx watched with professional assessment. The Vorath observed with scientific curiosity. But this presence watched with something else. Recognition, perhaps. Or judgment. 5 meters. Kai's hand slipped off the knife. He went down hard, his face striking the floor. The impact should have knocked him unconscious. Instead, he tasted copper and ozone and the metallic tang of recycled air. His fingers found the blade again. He pulled himself forward, moving like something that had forgotten it was supposed to be dead. 2 meters. 1 meter. His hand touched the target panel. The chamber's gravity immediately normalized. Kai collapsed, his body finally acknowledging the damage it had sustained. Medical drones flooded in, their scanners painting him in diagnostic light. Through dimming vision, he saw the observers' reactions. Commandant Threx stood rigid, his forearms crossed in what might have been respect or might have been disbelief. The Vortha's patterns pulsed in rapid calculation, trying to update its threat assessment of human physiology. And the shadow observer stepped forward into the light. She was tall, angular, covered in chitinous plates that shifted between deep purple and black. A Jothic, one of the galaxy's oldest ruling species. Her compound eyes reflected Kai's broken form in 1,000 facets. She wore the traditional robes of the hive courts, and on her thorax she bore the crimson seal that meant only one thing: royalty. Kai managed to turn his head, to meet those multifaceted eyes. And despite everything, the broken bones, the internal bleeding, the 3 years of hell that had led to this moment, he smiled again. The Queen tilted her head, a gesture that translated across species as profound interest. The medical drones tried to sedate him. Kai pushed their injectors away. He had something to prove, and unconsciousness could wait. Using the wall, he pulled himself into a sitting position. His body screamed. He ignored it. Protocol dictates recovery period, one of the medical drones chirped. Subject requires immediate intervention. Subject, Kai rasped, his voice rough from dehydration, has a name. Commandant Threx entered the chamber, moving with the casual power of a species that could bend steel with their bare hands. You should not be conscious, human. Your injury profile suggests critical system failure. Yeah, well. Kai coughed, and blood speckled his academy uniform. Humans are terrible at following biological suggestions. The Vorth instructor approached next, its bioluminescent patterns cycling through colors that indicated extreme confusion. Impossible survival metrics. This candidate operated at 400% beyond established human tolerances. Requesting explanation? Kai looked at the Vorth, then at Threx, then, finally, at the Jothic queen who had remained at the viewport, watching. You want to know how I survived? He wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. I thought about my little sister. She died when the Krell raided Earth's outer colonies. She was 6. And before they killed her, she smiled at me through the view screen and told me not to be scared. So I made a promise. I promised I'd smile back. I promised I'd show the galaxy that humans don't die scared. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of medical equipment, and Kai's labored breathing. The Queen spoke for the first time, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air vibrate. You are either the bravest creature I have encountered, or the most foolish. Can it be both, Your Majesty? Her mandibles clicked, laughter by Jothic standards. 3 years ago, when your species petitioned for Academy admission, the Hive Courts voted against it. We believed humans too fragile, too short-lived, too emotionally unstable for void warfare. I came to observe the final trial of your enrollment. I came to witness your failure. Kai said nothing. He simply waited, holding her gaze despite the protocol breach. Lower species didn't maintain eye contact with Hive royalty. But Kai had stopped caring about protocol somewhere around hour 38 in the gravity chamber. You have not failed. The Queen continued. You have demonstrated something far more valuable than strength or endurance. You have shown us that humanity possesses a quality we thought extinct in the modern galaxy, the willingness to smile at death itself. Commandant Threx's forearms uncrossed. The crucible trial is complete. Candidate Kai Chen has passed. The words should have brought relief. Instead, Kai felt only exhaustion and a strange sense of anticlimax. He'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Now that it had arrived, he realized the trial had never been about the gravity chamber. It had been about every day before it, every class where he was the slowest runner, every tactical simulation where his reaction time lagged behind his alien classmates, every night where he wondered if humanity's dream of stars was worth the cost. The medical drones finally succeeded in sedating him. As consciousness faded, Kai heard the Queen's voice one last time, speaking to Threx and the Vorth. Inform the Hive Courts. Inform all courts. Humanity has graduated its first Academy candidate. The Void Warfare Accords must be revised. We are no longer the galaxy's only apex predators. Kai's last thought before darkness took him was simple. His little sister would have been proud. 3 days later, Kai woke in the Academy's medical wing. His body was wrapped in regeneration mesh, and his bones had been reinforced with the same ceramic compounds that armored void fighters. The pain had receded to a dull ache. He felt almost human again, which was ironic given how much alien technology was currently rebuilding him. A figure sat in the chair beside his bed. The Queen. She'd removed her ceremonial robes and wore the simple gray uniform of a void combat instructor. It made her seem somehow more dangerous, not less. "You're awake," she observed. "Sooner than projected. Human recovery rates continue to confound our medical experts." Kai tried to sit up. The Queen raised a chitinous hand, stopping him. "Rest, candidate. You've earned it. With respect, Your Majesty, I've been resting for 3 days. That's about 2 days and 23 hours longer than I prefer." Her mandibles clicked again. "Yes. I've read your psychological profile. Humans call it restlessness. My species calls it death wish. Potato, potato." She tilted her head. "I don't understand that reference. It means they're basically the same thing. Human idiom. We have a lot of them. Most don't translate well." The Queen stood and moved to the window. Outside, Vexor Prime's twin suns painted the Academy grounds in shades of amber and crimson. Hundreds of cadets moved through training formations, Vorath, Krell, Threxian, and dozens of other species. And now, for the first time, one human. "Do you know why I voted against your species admission?" the Queen asked. "Because we're new, weak, and statistically likely to die in embarrassing numbers?" "Partially. But primarily because I feared you." She turned back to him, and her compound eyes caught the light in a way that made them seem almost warm. "The galaxy has been stable for 6,000 cycles. Wars are rare. Conflicts are managed through economic and diplomatic pressure. We have achieved something remarkable: peace through mutual understanding of consequences." Kai waited. He'd learned that lesson early in Academy training. When superior officers paused, they were gathering thoughts, not requesting input. Then humanity arrived. The Queen continued. A species that had barely mastered fusion drives, that still fought wars over resources and ideology, that hadn't even unified their own homeworld. But you looked at the stars and decided you belonged there anyway. Do you understand how insane that appears to species that spent millennia preparing for void travel? Probably the same way it looked when we decided to fly before we understood aerodynamics. Or when we went to our moon before we'd figured out computers. Humans are really good at doing things before we're ready. The Queen's mandibles twitched. Exactly. And that's why I feared you. Because a species willing to attempt the impossible before it's practical is a species that might destabilize everything we've built. So why did you come to watch my trial? If you'd already decided we were dangerous? Because I wanted to understand what drove that willingness. I've spent 3 days reviewing your Academy records, Candidate Chen. Your tactical scores place you in the bottom third of your class. Your physical assessments are barely passing. Your technical knowledge is adequate but unremarkable. By every measurable metric, you are average. Gee, thanks. Yet you survived something that killed 17 candidates who were objectively superior to you in every category. You survived because you smiled. That smile haunted me for 3 days. I needed to understand it. Kai met her compound gaze. And do you understand it? The Queen moved closer, and for a moment, Kai saw past the alien physiology to something universal, curiosity mixed with concern. I believe I do. Humans smile at death not because you're brave, but because you're afraid. That smile is how you process fear. It's how you transform terror into determination. Other species freeze or flee when confronted with mortality. Humans grin and step forward. That's pretty insightful for someone who wanted to keep us out of the Academy. I've changed my assessment. The Queen placed something on his bed, a small data chip. This contains your next assignment. You've passed the crucible. You're officially an academy graduate. But graduation is not completion. You have one final evaluation before you receive your commission. Kai picked up the chip, turning it over in his fingers. What kind of evaluation? The kind that determines whether humanity is ready for what comes next. She moved toward the door, then paused. The galaxy is watching you, Kai-Chen. Every species that doubted humanity's place in the void is waiting for you to fail. Every species that feared us is waiting for confirmation of that fear. You carry more than your own reputation now. No pressure though, right? Her mandibles clicked one final time. I've reviewed Earth's history. Your species has carried impossible pressure since you learned to speak. This should feel familiar. She left without another word. Kai examined the data chip. It was unmarked, classified beyond standard academy protocols. Whatever his final evaluation involved, it wasn't going to be another gravity chamber trial. Those were designed to test physical limits. This would test something else. He pulled himself out of bed, ignoring the protests from his still healing body. The regeneration mesh flexed with him, supporting damaged tissue while allowing movement. Alien medical technology was impressive. On Earth, his injuries would have required months of recovery. Here, he'd be back to full function in a week. But function wasn't the same as readiness. Kai accessed the chip using his neural interface, another bit of alien tech that humanity had eagerly adopted. Information flooded his visual cortex in cascading layers. Mission parameters, threat assessments, historical context. And buried beneath it all, a name that made his blood run cold: the Void Gardens. Every Academy cadet knew about the Void Gardens. They were the galaxy's most secure prison, a massive station orbiting a neutron star where the worst criminals and war criminals were held. Escape was impossible. The station's gravity field was precisely calibrated. Any attempt to deviate from approved corridors resulted in instant crushing death. Guards weren't necessary when physics itself was the warden. 3 days ago, something had happened at the Void Gardens. The details were classified, but the result was clear. 47 inmates had somehow overridden the gravity controls and seized control of 3 sections. They'd taken hostages, including a delegation of diplomatic cadets who'd been touring the facility as part of their cultural education program. Standard protocol was simple: negotiations first, tactical rescue second, and if both failed, containment. Lock down the affected sections and wait them out. The inmates couldn't escape, couldn't access weapons, couldn't do anything except surrender eventually. Except these weren't standard inmates. Kai's neural interface highlighted their profiles. Krell war chiefs who'd committed genocide on colony worlds. Vorath scientists who'd weaponized diseases. Threxian mercenaries who'd sold their services to the highest bidder regardless of cause. And leading them all was a name that carried weight across the galaxy: Veshtar the Unbroken, a Jothic noble who'd attempted to overthrow the Hive Courts and reinstate the old ways, the brutal, expansionist philosophy that had nearly destroyed the galaxy 6,000 cycles ago. Kai's mission parameters were grimly simple: infiltrate the compromised sections, assess the situation, and report back. Not rescue. Not engage. Just observe and survive. It was a suicide mission dressed up as reconnaissance. Everyone knew it. The question was whether Kai knew it too, and whether he'd smile and accept it anyway. He accessed the mission timeline. He had 6 hours before deployment. Kai used the time to prepare. He requisitioned equipment: a standard void suit, emergency atmosphere pack, basic toolkit, and his grandfather's knife. The Academy armorer raised an eyebrow at that last item but didn't comment. Kai Chen's knife had become something of a legend after the Crucible trial. Denying it now would have felt like tempting fate. In the Academy's chapel, a multi-faith space designed to accommodate 40 different species' spiritual needs, Kai found a quiet corner and thought about his sister. Her name had been Maya. She'd loved Earth's oceans and had wanted to be a marine biologist. The Krell had killed her because she'd been in the wrong place when they raided the colony for resources. No grand reason. No strategic value. Just random violence from a species that saw humans as resource competition. "I'm still smiling, Maya," Kai whispered to the empty air. "Still showing them we don't die scared. Talking to ghosts, candidate?" Kai turned. Commandant Threx stood in the chapel doorway, his massive frame blocking most of the light. "Talking to memories, sir. Humans don't believe ghosts exist, but we act like they do anyway. It's complicated." Threx entered, moving with surprising grace for his size. "I reviewed your mission parameters. This assignment is irregular. That's a polite way of saying it's a test designed to get me killed." "Yes." Threx sat on a bench designed for his species' anatomy. "The Hive Courts want confirmation of humanity's capabilities. They want to see if your survival instincts match your ambition. They want proof that you can operate under conditions where retreat is impossible and victory uncertain. And if I fail? Then, humanity's petition for full alliance status will be denied. Your species will remain peripheral, allowed to trade, allowed to travel, but never trusted with strategic responsibilities." Threx's 4 eyes focused on Kai with unsettling intensity. "One human's failure will define humanity's galactic future for the next 1,000 cycles." Kai laughed. It came out bitter and rough. "Great. No pressure at all. I did not come here to add weight to your burden, Candidate Chin. I came to tell you something the Queen will not say." Threx leaned forward. "She fears you. But she also hopes for you. Every species in this galaxy has forgotten what it means to be young, to be hungry, to look at impossible odds and smile. We've become comfortable with our place in the void. Comfortable species become stagnant species. The galaxy needs what humanity represents, not because you're strong or smart or special, but because you haven't learned to be afraid yet. I'm terrified right now, sir." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. It's the absence of fear that kills." Threx stood. "The transport leaves in 2 hours. I will be monitoring your mission personally. If you die, I will ensure it's recorded as heroic sacrifice, not foolish failure. That much I can promise. I'd prefer not to die at all, sir." "Then don't." "Humans are quite good at not dying when everyone expects you to." The transport to Void Gardens was a military corvette, small and fast, designed for stealth insertion. Kai sat in the cargo bay with 7 other team members, all specialists in infiltration, combat, or technical systems. None of them were human. The team leader was a Vorath named Slix, whose bioluminescent patterns indicated calm professionalism. She briefed them during the 3-hour transit, her voice carrying the slight harmonic distortion that meant she was speaking through a translation device. Mission objective: penetrate compromised Section 7, locate diplomatic hostages, assess inmate capabilities, and extract without engagement. The Void Gardens gravity system is unstable in the compromised sections. Movement will be difficult. Communication with command will be intermittent. Questions? A Threxian engineer raised one of his 4 hands. What's our contingency if inmates have weapons? They shouldn't. All tools and implements were stripped before lockdown. But assume worst case. Slix's patterns shifted to indicate concern. We're dealing with the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. They survived to reach the gardens. They're creative and ruthless. Do not underestimate them. Kai raised his hand. And if we find the hostages? Hold position and call for extraction. You are reconnaissance only, Candidate Chin. This is not a rescue mission. With respect, ma'am, if we find them and don't act, they'll die. Slix's patterns flickered through colors that Kai's translator didn't recognize. Finally, she said, Academy candidates follow orders. If you cannot do that, speak now. Kai wanted to argue. Every human instinct screamed at him to push back, to demand a better answer. But he'd spent 3 years learning when to fight and when to flow. This was a flowing moment. Understood, ma'am. Reconnaissance only. The corvette decelerated hard as they approached the Void Gardens. Through the viewports, Kai saw the station for the first time. It was massive, a ring structure orbiting the neutron star at precisely calculated distance, where gravitational forces could be manipulated with mathematical precision. The station's surface was dark metal, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. It looked less like a prison and more like a monument to inevitability. 30 seconds to insertion, the pilot announced. Gravity fields are fluctuating. Expect rough transition. That was understatement. When the Corvette docked and Kai stepped through the airlock, gravity seized him and threw him against the wall with enough force to crack a rib. His void suit's compensators screamed warnings, recalibrating desperately. Around him, the team struggled with similar issues, except Slicks, whose species had evolved in variable gravity environments. Stay close, she commanded. Follow my path exactly. The stable gravity corridors are narrow. They moved deeper into the station. The walls were scarred, not from weapons, but from gravity fluctuations that had crushed and torn metal like tissue paper. Bodies lay scattered in corridors, inmates who tried to exploit the system failure and been destroyed by forces they couldn't predict. The smell of death mixed with ozone and recycled air. Kai's neural interface updated constantly, mapping safe paths based on sensor data. But the maps were unreliable. Gravity fields shifted unpredictably, and what was safe one moment became fatal the next. Moving through the void gardens felt like walking through a minefield where the mines constantly teleported. They found the first hostage 20 minutes into infiltration. She was a young Krell diplomatic cadet, pinned against a wall by localized gravity that had increased to 15 Earth normals. Her exoskeleton was cracked, and green blood pooled beneath her. She'd been dying for hours, unable to move, unable to call for help, unable to do anything except wait for pressure to finish crushing her. Slick scanned her. Vital signs failing. Extraction impossible without gravity stabilization. We move on. No. Kai stepped forward. That's an order, candidate. I know. Kai examined the wall panel nearest the Krell. But if I can reset the local gravity field, we can at least get her out of immediate danger. You're not a technician. I'm a human. We're really good at breaking things in useful ways. Kai pulled his grandfather's knife and pried open the panel. Inside was a mess of crystalline circuits and photonic processors, technology so far beyond Earth's capabilities that Kai had no formal training in repairing it. But he understood systems. And all systems had patterns. He traced the energy flow visually, identifying the feedback loop causing the gravity spike. There, a damaged regulator crystal creating harmonic resonance. Kai jammed his knife into the circuit, shorting the loop. Gravity normalized instantly. The Krell cadet collapsed, gasping. Kai caught her, feeling her weight against his arms. She was lighter than expected despite her size. Krell bones were hollow to compensate for their homeworld's heavy atmosphere. Can you move? Kai asked. She clicked her mandibles weakly. You, human? Yeah. Try not to hold it against me. Slicks's patterns flashed irritation and grudging respect. You just violated direct orders. I know. Court-martial me later. Right now, we need to move before that gravity field destabilizes again. They pushed forward, moving through corridors that groaned under impossible stress. Twice more they found hostages, a Vorath researcher and 2 Threxian military advisors. Each time, Kai found ways to stabilize local gravity enough for extraction. Each time, Slicks's protests grew weaker. By the time they reached Section 7's central control room, Kai's neural interface was screaming warnings. His body had accumulated stress fractures, his suit's compensators were at 60% capacity, and his knife had shorted so many circuits that its blade was glowing cherry red. But they'd found 5 hostages alive. And Kai wore that grim smile again. The control room doors were sealed. Beyond them, sensors indicated the remaining hostages, 12 diplomatic cadets from 8 different species. And guarding them was Veshtar the Unbroken, along with 46 of the galaxy's worst killers. Slicks contacted command. Hostages located. Requesting tactical extraction team. The response came through fragmented by interference. Negative, gravity fields, unstable, hold position, reinforcements, 4 hours. 4 hours was eternity in a station where gravity could crush you between heartbeats. Kai examined the door mechanism. It was designed to be impossible to override from outside, multiple redundant locks, each requiring unique authorization. The kind of security that made sense when you were imprisoning galaxy-class threats. "We can't wait 4 hours," Kai said quietly. "The gravity fluctuations are getting worse. In 4 hours, this whole section might collapse. Then, we observe and report as ordered." Kai looked at the rescued hostages. They were alive because he'd broken orders. The ones still trapped inside would die because he followed them. The math was simple. The morality was complicated. "No," Kai said. Slicks's patterns flashed red. "Candidate Chin, stand down. I'm going in." "That's suicide." "Probably. But here's the thing about humans, ma'am. We're really bad at math when lives are involved." Kai approached the door and accessed his neural interface, pulling up everything he'd learned about Void Garden's security systems. It was inadequate knowledge. Incomplete understanding. But it was what he had. He placed his palm against the door. The Jothic Queen's voice crackled through his neural interface, bypassing normal communication channels. "Candidate Chin, I am monitoring your mission. Do not do what you are considering. With respect, Your Majesty, you should probably stop watching then. This is not bravery. This is foolishness. The difference matters. Maybe. But my little sister used to say that courage is just doing the right thing when you're terrified. And I'm absolutely terrified right now." Kai's fingers found the door's power coupling. "So I must be courageous." He shorted the coupling with his knife. The door exploded inward, and Kai-Chen walked through smoke and sparks into a room full of the galaxy's worst monsters, wearing that impossible human smile, ready to prove once again that humanity's greatest strength wasn't intelligence or endurance or adaptability, it was the sheer stubborn refusal to accept that some things were impossible. The control room was larger than Kai expected, a circular chamber with walls covered in monitoring equipment and gravity field controllers. The hostages huddled in the center, surrounded by inmates who'd positioned themselves strategically at key control points. And standing above them all on an elevated platform was Veshtar. The former Jothic noble was massive, easily twice the size of the queen. His chitin was scarred and pitted from decades of combat, and his compound eyes held a cold intelligence that made Kai's survival instincts scream warnings. This wasn't some mindless criminal. This was a predator who nearly toppled a galactic government through careful planning and ruthless execution. Veshtar's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "A human! How delightfully unexpected! I was told your species had finally produced an academy graduate. I didn't believe it. You're so small." Kai stepped fully into the room, his knife held loosely at his side. Behind him, he heard Slicks and the team taking defensive positions in the doorway. "Funny! I was going to say the same thing about your chances of getting out of here alive." Several inmates laughed. Veshtar's mandibles clicked. "You have courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Tell me, small human, do you understand where you are? Do you comprehend the forces that keep this station operational? I understand that you've got maybe 2 hours before the gravity systems collapse completely and this entire section gets compressed into a singularity. I understand that you're trapped as surely as these hostages. And I understand that you're too proud to admit you made a mistake." The laughter stopped. Veshtar descended from his platform with fluid grace, moving directly toward Kai. Each step was measured, calculated to demonstrate dominance. "You believe you can rescue these hostages? You, a single human cadet with a primitive blade and an overabundance of confidence?" "No. I believe you're going to let them go." "And why would I do that?" "Because you're not stupid. You seized this section because you thought you could bargain for your release. But you miscalculated. The Hive courts don't negotiate with criminals, Not even former nobles. They'll let this entire station collapse before they give you what you want. Your only play left is cooperation. Let the hostages go, surrender peacefully, and maybe, they'll relocate you to a less horrifying prison. Veshtar stopped 3 meters from Kai. At this distance, his size was overwhelming. He could crush Kai without effort, snap him like kindling and scatter the pieces. You're assuming I want to survive. That stopped Kai cold. What? The Hive courts imprisoned me here because death would make me a martyr. They wanted me forgotten, erased from memory through time and obscurity. But if I die now, taking these diplomatic cadets with me, representatives from 8 different species, I become something far more powerful than a martyr. I become a message. I remind the galaxy that the old ways still have teeth, that comfort breeds weakness, that peace is just violence waiting to wake up. Kai's mind raced. This wasn't a hostage situation. It was a suicide attack with elaborate staging. Veshtar didn't want escape. He wanted legacy. And 12 innocent cadets would die to provide it. You're right, Kai said quietly. You would become a message. But not the message you think. Veshtar tilted his head. Explain. You'd become proof that the old ways were right to be abandoned. That violence and dominance lead only to meaningless death. That the galaxy's choice to embrace diplomacy over warfare was correct. You'd die, and every species would look at your corpse and thank the stars we moved beyond that primitive philosophy. You wouldn't inspire. You'd horrify. And then you'd be forgotten anyway. The control room fell silent. Even the other inmates seemed to be holding their collective breath. Veshtar's compound eyes studied Kai with an intensity that felt physical. You're clever, human. Using my pride against me, suggesting I'd fail even in death. But you're wrong about one thing. I won't be forgotten. Because of you. Me? Humanity's first academy graduate, dying heroically while trying to save hostages from a legendary criminal. The story writes itself. Your species will speak my name for generations, always linked to your sacrifice. I'll be immortal through your martyrdom. Veshtar's mandibles spread wider. So thank you, Kai-chun. Thank you for making my death meaningful. Kai felt the trap snap closed. By coming here, by trying to save the hostages, he'd given Veshtar exactly what he wanted, a dramatic finale with a hero to kill. The inmates began to spread out, cutting off escape routes. Slicks and the team raised weapons, but they were outnumbered 10-1, and any firefight in this unstable gravity field would kill everyone. This was it. The moment where Kai-chun was supposed to die heroically, cement humanity's reputation through glorious sacrifice, and give Veshtar the legacy he craved. The galaxy was watching. The Queen was watching. History was watching. Kai looked at the hostages. 12 terrified faces from 8 different species, all waiting for salvation or death. He looked at Veshtar, ancient and proud and desperate for meaning. He looked at his team, ready to fight a battle they couldn't win. And Kai-chun, humanity's first academy graduate, did something nobody expected. He laughed. Not a bitter laugh. Not a brave laugh. A genuine, from-the-belly laugh that echoed through the control room and made every being present question his sanity. Oh man! Kai gasped, wiping tears from his eyes. Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Veshtar's mandibles clicked uncertainly. You find your impending death amusing? No, I find this whole situation absurd. You want to be remembered? You want to send a message? You want to prove the old ways had value? Kai spread his arms, still chuckling. Then, you're going about it completely wrong. Explain. Quickly. My patience thins. Kai's laughter faded, but his smile remained. That human smile that the galaxy was learning to fear. You said the Hive courts imprisoned you because death would make you a martyr. But what if there was a worse fate? What if you became the Jothic who surrendered to a human? What if your name was remembered not for grand violence, but for humiliating capitulation? What if your legacy was being the first of the old guard to kneel before the new? The control room went dead silent. Every inmate stared at Kai with expressions ranging from shock to fury. Veshtar's mandibles didn't move for a full 10 seconds. Then he began to laugh too. A deep, resonant sound that made the monitoring equipment vibrate. "You magnificent, insane creature," Veshtar said. "You're offering me a choice between dying a legend and living as a joke." "Not a joke. A symbol. The galaxy changes, Veshtar. The old ways are dying not because they were weak, but because something new is arriving. Something that doesn't fight with your rules or submit to your philosophies. We humans, we're too stupid to know we're supposed to lose. We smile at death. We laugh at impossible odds. We turn everything into a story worth telling." Kai stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "So here's my offer. Let these hostages go. Surrender. And when the galaxy asks why the great Veshtar the Unbroken capitulated to a human child, tell them the truth. Tell them you saw the future. Tell them you recognize that violence is yesterday's currency. Tell them you chose to evolve. And if I refuse? If I choose the dramatic finale? Then you'll die, the hostages will die, I'll probably die, and everyone will remember you as exactly what you are, a relic desperately clinging to relevance in a galaxy that's moved beyond you. Your story ends with a whimper dressed up as a bang. That's the truth you're afraid of. That's why you're stalling instead of killing me." Veshtar's mandibles clicked rapidly, processing. Around them, gravity fields fluctuated violently, causing the floor to buckle and the walls to groan. The station was failing. In minutes, maybe less, the control room would collapse. "The human makes a point," one of the Krell war chiefs said. "We chose violence once. It earned us this prison. Perhaps choosing differently." Silence. Veshtar's voice cracked like thunder. "I will not be lectured about choice by my subordinates. But the damage was done." Kai had fractured the inmates' unified resolve, introduced doubt where certainty had existed. The hostages sensed it too, hope flickering in their eyes for the first time since capture. The Queen's voice whispered through Kai's neural interface. "Candidate Chin. You are either brilliantly insane or insanely brilliant. I cannot determine which. Honestly, Your Majesty? Neither can I." Veshtar raised one chitinous claw. "This game of yours, human. This verbal sparring. It's impressive. But words don't change physics. This station is collapsing. We all die regardless of my choice." "Wrong again. Slicks, can your team stabilize the gravity systems if you reach the primary control matrix?" The Vortha's patterns shifted to affirmation. "Possibly. If we had access. If the security lockouts were removed. Both impossible from our position." Kai pointed his knife at the control panel beneath Veshtar's platform. "Not impossible. Difficult. There's a difference. Remove the lockouts, let my team work, and I guarantee we all walk out of here alive. Your guarantee means nothing. Maybe. But it's the only guarantee you're getting. Take it or leave it. Die a forgotten relic or live as the Jothic who was smart enough to recognize change when it smiled at him." Gravity surged. The floor buckled upward, and 2 inmates were crushed instantly as localized fields spiked to fatal levels. The control room had maybe 5 minutes left. 4, if they were unlucky. Veshtar looked at Kai. At the hostages. At his fellow inmates. At the failing station that was supposed to be their eternal prison. And for the first time in 6,000 cycles of Jothic history, an old noble made a decision that would have horrified his ancestors. "Release the security lockouts," he commanded. "All of them." The inmates erupted in protest. Veshtar's voice cut through the chaos. "This is not surrender. This is survival. And survival means we live to fight another day, in another way, on terms that matter. The human is correct. Dying here accomplishes nothing except confirming every negative belief the hive courts hold about our philosophy." One by one, the control panels lit up green. Slicks and her team rushed to the primary matrix, their tools flashing as they worked to stabilize critical systems. Kai moved to the hostages, checking each for injuries, offering water and reassurance. "You're really human?" a young Threxian cadet asked, her voice shaking. "Last time I checked." "Why?" "They said humans were small. Weak. I didn't expect." "What? That I'd be stupidly brave?" "Yeah, we get that a lot." Kai smiled at her. "You're going to be fine. All of you. Just stay calm and stay together." Gravity stabilized with 90 seconds to spare. The control room stopped groaning, and the floor settled into stable position. Slick's patterns flashed vibrant blue. Success. Gravity fields secured. Station integrity at acceptable levels. We need immediate evacuation, but we're no longer at critical risk. Kai turned to Veshtar. "Your turn. Tell your people to stand down. Let us extract the hostages. And then we'll talk about what comes next." Veshtar's mandibles clicked slowly. "You understand that I could kill you now. Gravity is stable. I no longer need your cooperation." "True. But you won't." "How do you know?" Kai's smile never wavered. "Because you're curious. You want to see what happens next. You want to know what a galaxy shaped by humans looks like. You want to understand how something as small and fragile as me can stand here smiling after everything that just happened. Call it pride, call it curiosity, call it evolution. But you're not going to kill me. You're going to let us all walk out, and you're going to spend the rest of your imprisonment wondering if you made the right choice." Silence stretched. Then Veshtar laughed again, that deep resonance that spoke of ancient amusement. "You are either the bravest fool I've encountered or the wisest child. Time will tell which." "Very well, Kai Chin. Take your hostages. Return them to their worried families. And tell the galaxy that Veshtar the Unbroken chose something harder than death. He chose to wait and see what humans do with the stars they've claimed." The extraction was smooth. Reinforcements arrived within the hour, and a full tactical team secured the control room. The inmates surrendered without further incident, their unity shattered by Veshtar's unexpected cooperation. The hostages were treated and returned to their academies, each carrying a story about the human who'd smiled at death and won through words rather than weapons. Kai was placed under medical observation, again, while the Academy Board reviewed his actions. Violating direct orders normally resulted in disciplinary action ranging from demotion to expulsion. But circumstances were unique. Results were undeniable. And the entire galaxy had witnessed humanity's first graduate turn a hostage crisis into a philosophical victory. The Queen visited him in medical isolation. This time, she wore full ceremonial robes and was accompanied by 3 Hive Court officials. Their presence indicated formal business. "Candidate Kai Chin," the Queen began, her voice carrying the weight of official declaration. "You have completed your final evaluation. The Hive Courts have reviewed your actions at Void Garden Station. We have reached a unanimous decision." Kai sat up straighter. This was it. His entire species' galactic future hinged on the next words. "Your tactical choices were questionable. Your disregard for direct orders was concerning. Your willingness to engage in verbal negotiation with a terrorist demonstrated either remarkable courage or remarkable foolishness." The Queen's mandibles spread slightly. "However, your results were inarguable. 12 hostages extracted safely. Station integrity preserved. A prison rebellion resolved without additional casualties. And most importantly, you demonstrated that humanity possesses something this galaxy desperately needs: the ability to find solutions that don't exist in our tactical databases." One of the Hive Court officials stepped forward, holding a small crystalline device. The Hive Courts formally recognize humanity's graduation from probationary status. Your species is hereby granted full alliance privileges, including voting rights in Galactic Council, access to strategic defense networks, and eligibility for command positions in unified Void forces. Kai couldn't speak. 3 years of pain, 3 years of being the slowest and weakest and least capable, 3 years of proving humanity belonged, and it came down to this moment. Additionally, the Queen continued, "You are promoted from candidate to lieutenant, and assigned as humanity's first liaison officer to the Hive Courts. You will represent your species in diplomatic negotiations, strategic planning sessions, and cultural exchanges. You will be Earth's voice in galactic affairs. Kai's voice cracked. I'm 19 years old. I barely passed my tactical exams. I'm not qualified for diplomatic service. You smiled at Veshtar the Unbroken and made him question 6,000 cycles of philosophy. You're overqualified. The Queen's tone softened. I know this is overwhelming. I know you're terrified. But that's precisely why you're the correct choice. A diplomat who understands fear understands stakes. A diplomat who smiles at death understands hope. And a diplomat who can turn enemies into allies through pure audacity understands the galaxy's future better than those of us who've spent millennia managing its present. The crystalline device was placed in Kai's hand. It was warm, pulsing with stored information, centuries of diplomatic protocols, alliance histories, cultural databases. Everything he needed to represent humanity among the stars. One final thing, the Queen said. I visited Earth during my investigation of your species. I went to the memorial where your sister is honored. I left a Jothic tribute marker, a symbol that means small warrior who changed everything. I thought she would have appreciated it. Kai's eyes burned. He blinked rapidly, refusing to let tears fall in front of the Hive Court officials. But his voice still broke when he spoke. Thank you, Your Majesty. That means more than you know. I know exactly what it means. The Queen stepped back, preparing to leave. Your sister smiled at death and told you not to be afraid. You've spent 3 years honoring that request. Now the galaxy needs you to teach the rest of us how to smile at our fears. Can you do that? Kai looked at the crystalline device. At the Queen. At the officials representing the oldest civilization in known space. They were trusting humanity, trusting him, with responsibilities that could shape galactic policy for generations. He was 19. He was scared. He was completely unprepared. He smiled. I can try, Your Majesty. Trying impossible things is kind of humanity's specialty. The Queen's mandibles clicked in what Kai had learned to recognize as profound approval. Yes. Yes, it is. Welcome to Galactic Service, Lieutenant Chin. Don't disappoint us. I'll probably disappoint you regularly. But I'll smile while doing it. That's all anyone can ask. They left Kai alone with his thoughts, his new responsibilities, and the weight of his species' future pressing against his shoulders. Through the medical wing's viewport, he could see Vexor Prime's twin sun setting, painting the Academy grounds in colors Earth had never produced. Somewhere down there, new cadets were training, including, for the first time, a small group of humans who'd followed Kai's impossible path. They'd looked to him as a symbol now. As proof that humanity belonged among the stars. As the graduate who smiled at death and taught the galaxy something it had forgotten, that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. Kai touched the viewport, feeling cool alien glass against his fingers. Still smiling, Maya. Still showing them we don't die scared. And you know what? I think I'm finally starting to believe it myself. In the reflection, he saw his own face, scarred, tired, but genuinely happy. The smile wasn't forced anymore. It wasn't a shield against fear or a weapon against impossible odds. It was simply what happened when someone realized they'd survived something that should have killed them, and discovered that survival was just the beginning. Humanity had graduated. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy, watching this small species smile at challenges that terrified civilizations millennia older, began to understand what philosophers had debated for cycles. Sometimes the most dangerous beings aren't the strongest or smartest or most advanced. Sometimes they're simply the ones too stubborn to know when they should quit.